Welcome back to Dear Future, the podcast where we talk to the artists, thinkers, and tech wizards who are shaping what is next. I'm Suki, your host, and today I am very hyped to be joined by none other than Flosstradamus, aka Curt Cameruci. If you've ever been to an EDM festival and listened to trap music, lost your mind in a mosh pit, or even blasted trap music in your car loud enough to shake the windows, like I have in the past, you might have felt the impact of his work. Flosstradamus helped popularize the trap EDM genre, blending hip-hop, electronic beats, and pure chaos into tracks like Mosh Pit and an iconic original Dawn remix that felt like it took over every festival in 2012. But Curt is more than just a DJ. He's a tech entrepreneur who is always a few steps ahead of where music is going, and an AI enthusiast. He is building AI tools for musicians like voice cloning apps, next-gen remix platforms, and even AI creator marketplaces. So he's not just making music, he is rethinking how music gets made. So today I'm very excited to talk about everything from the wild early days of Flosstradamus to what it's like pioneering in the AI space. We'll also dive into how tech is changing the game for artists and why he thinks the next big wave might not just be sound, but a whole new way of creating.
This idea that everything's been done before can be challenged.
I've been dreaming of a computer like this my whole life.
It really made me think more about how our brains work.
It's not coming from anywhere else. It's only coming from us.
Dear Future.
So, Curt, welcome to Dear Future.
Thank you for having me. Happy
It's
to be
such
here.
a pleasure. So just to start things off, you started Flosstradamus in Chicago, right when the city felt like it was bubbling up with house music, juke music, hip hop. What was it like coming up in that scene, and how did it shape your sound?
Yeah, Chicago was in the middle of America. So there was influences of like New York hip hop when I was coming up, and a lot of like the West Coast hip hop as well. But in Chicago, there's a genre that started there called house music. And the one thing that was really cool living in the Midwest around Chicago was that like dance music never left. I think there's these little moments in culture where dance music bubbled up in the States and then kind of went down. And then in Chicago, there would always just be dance music around. It's currently called EDM, or people call it EDM, electronic dance music, but you would turn on the radio and the DJs would be mixing like current hip hop with house music. I've always just heard dance music or electronic music mixed with like other types of music. So it was really cool to just get like an eclectic view of everything in the city I was living in at the time. So,
And how would you say that influenced the way that you made music? Because you didn't have to also take that into your own style. You could have rejected it. You could have gone somewhere else. What about it made you feel like this is something I want to not only take, but also explore new expressions of?
probably a lot of the mix show DJs doing that, blending those multiple genres together. And I think I was taught that in a way, like, oh, it's okay to do that. And then I would take what they did. They were mixing a lot of like hip hop and then house music. But when I took it, I would like, oh, well, a lot of my friends are into like indie dance music. And so I would take some indie dance records and mix like this block party song with like Outkast Hey Ya. So I'd do it more in like the hipster indie sleaze world. So doing what they were doing on the radio and things like that, but like bringing those mixing styles into like other genres and into my culture, then also mixing it back into that. So it's just like, there was never like, you can't do this. It was always just like, everything was okay as long as like the BPMs aligned.
And tell me about trap. How did that emerge in your life?
Yeah, so the genre I'm known for is trap music, and that's on like the production style of music. But when Flosstradamus started in 2005, 20 years now, which is wild.
You've been around.
Yeah, I have. My eardrums and my hairline are feeling that. But in the initial inception of Flosstradamus, it was just like blending things together live. So when I very first started, it was vinyl. So you would mix one actual vinyl record with another one, but it was crossing those genres. As time went on, there was more technologies that came out to DJ with computers, and then also with MP3s and things like that. And then the technology into the computer side of production kind of adapted as well. And I was able to do what I was doing live by mashing two genres together, but doing that in the production side of things. So taking the drums of hip hop, but mixing it with like the synths of EDM, and then putting those two together kind of was part of this birth of this new genre called trap within EDM. And it was just very high energy drums mixed with high energy synths. And that's kind of where the trap genre started, was that.
That's amazing. Did you know at the time that it was going to be that big? Because so often when you're starting a new creative creative endeavor, there's a kind of like, oh, I just want to cook this new recipe. I'd like to try something new. What was your experience living through that moment? And did it feel like you were aware of the transition that was happening?
I've always approached creating music and participating in music as a DJ. Even the way I make my songs is kind of like a DJ. I throw multiple things together and create it. And so at the time, I don't think it would have been big by any means, but I just knew it would have worked because it worked on the dance floor. We are very lucky as DJs, and even comedians have this, but you kind of workshop things with the crowd and you know what works and you know what doesn't. And so for me, I knew it would work because it worked on the dance floor. How would I translate that to creation? And that's kind of where it was. And once we started doing that, it became something that did work. I never thought it would just be like big, but I knew it would work on the dance floor. And so I wanted to create that to make that happen again, I think. And then, yeah, just snowballed from there.
And you're also not just a DJ. There's so much more that you're doing as an entrepreneur. You're building companies. You're really deep in tech. Where did the fascination come around technology and being in this world of building products, building services? How did that spark?
Yeah, so when I was living in Chicago, I was actually going to Columbia College. I have a degree in interactive multimedia. Graduated in 2004. It was a very early web. So it was doing some sort of like SQL database stuff and HTML. And there's this thing called Macromedia Flash. We were doing a lot of interactive tech at the time. And in my degree as well, there was music, there was video, there was all sorts of interactive things. But of course, that's what a lot of everything is now. Interactive media is happening everywhere, whether it's a TikTok or things like that. But at the time, my degree was in that. So I went to school for coding. And then it was funny. I graduated in 2004. Flosstradamus started in 2005. I was working in tech that year out of college pretty much, doing like basic internship type level jobs. And then in 2005, I got flown out from Chicago to LA to DJ a show. And I was in my early 20s and I was like, you know what? Like I have this degree now, maybe just like put that on the shelf for a little bit and then just try DJing and maybe I can travel for the summer. And then now I'm here 20 years later and that became the precedent. But during that whole time of these 20 years in Flosstradamus, I've always been doing tech things, even within Flosstradamus. There's a lot of cool things I've done in tech. And now that I've been running around the world for the past 2 decades, I like being at home, doing a lot of the things I do creatively, but back in tech again. So now it's like coming back to more of that tech side of things.
As someone who has kind of taken their side quest and made it the main quest, I do want to know a little bit about your early experiments because you've done some really interesting things from guerrilla marketing, some of your shows in really interesting ways. I'd love to hear a little bit more about those early experiments and what you were trying to accomplish and what you ended up finding.
We've done so many things from like release songs via torrent and Zippy Share and all these like file sharing websites. We were almost choosing to do that pre-SoundCloud, like find ways to like put our music out there to the people in a way that no one else was doing. So we would do these random little tech releases of things. One of the things we did was released an album on a vape, like an actual USB vape. You could plug in and get our music. And I ended up taking that technology that we built for that. And during the NFT boom in like 2021, I put some tech on it so you could actually mint NFTs with the same vape. So there was only 3 of those that we ended up doing that with, but
3 vapes to rule them all.
Yeah, exactly. So I was noticing like in early NFTs, there wasn't much physical to digital interacting that was happening. It was like, buy this JPEG. Cool, you own a JPEG. So I was like, how can we make this more experiential? So you're actually getting something that you're paying for. So there was only 3 of the physical NFTs that we made that were the vapes. And it was like a smokable NFT. The 3 people that won that, when they plugged in the NFT, it would unlock a second NFT into their wallet instantly. So they'd plug it in, then they got the NFT. And then I added another layer to the tech that once all 3 are plugged in, then they unlock NFTs into their wallets for everyone else. So it's like it's super participating between everyone. And one person still hasn't minted the NFT with the physical. They own it, but they haven't plugged it in to then unlock it into the other wallets. So kind of gamifies the experience a little bit. One other thing around that release, which I haven't really talked about that much, but it was in the Clubhouse days. Everyone was on Clubhouse interacting.
I know Clubhouse. I found my husband through Clubhouse.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's
wild
amazing.
days.
Wow.
Go on. So in the Clubhouse days.
I want to hear about that
Yeah,
actually.
totally.
Clubhouse was awesome. It was so perfect for the time of us like stuck in our houses during that. But I did this whole NFT release through Clubhouse. That's kind of where the early NFT community was. And the vapes that we ended up doing sold for a lot of money. So I wanted to actually make an NFT that like my mom could do, or like kind of onboard people and show them that it's okay. So we sold 420 NFTs for $4.20. And so anyone could get them. Like my fans could get them, a friend could get them, whatever. It's just super simple. And what I also did with that, it's a visual NFT with an audio backing. And there's a thing in music, you can actually visualize audio on a spectrogram. So it almost like creates an image of what the sound looks like. I I actually baked a seed phrase to a crypto wallet in the audio. So if you visualize the audio from that $4.20 NFT, there's a hidden crypto wallet baked in the audio. And if the people that went to that wallet address, they could get a free NFT. So they went there and found it. And it actually became almost like a give a penny, take a penny thing. Some people would like take an NFT out and then leave one. Someone put $70 in Ethereum in there once. It became this little like trading hub, and it kind of made the whole experience more experiential instead of just
it's
like
like a
owning
free
a
book
JPEG.
library, like the neighborhood little book
Yeah,
library.
good call.
That's
Yeah.
so interesting. Wow. And then you also have had all these moments, even in the past early days, where you had this guerrilla marketing scheme where it's almost like people were at this festival and you did this big activation. I'd love to hear about that. Really kind of showing at least the breadth of time that you have spent gamifying the ways that people relate to your music.
I always want fans, I want everyone to get a little bit more than just the initial experience. And the thing you might be alluding to is like during South by Southwest, I made these Wi-Fi lunch boxes. It was cool. It was a Raspberry Pi, which is just like a little computer that you can have hooked up to just like a crappy little Wi-Fi router. But what we did is we made it so that Wi-Fi router broadcasted out all of the free Wi-Fi networks, like the Linksys and the Apple, whatever, all of the basic level Wi-Fi routers. Because in maybe 2014 at South by Southwest, it was just hard to get a signal on your phone. So we made it so people would just auto-connect to these networks. And when they connected to the network, if they went to facebook.com, if they went anywhere, it would actually just redirect just to the sole page. Every time it would just be our page. And there you could download music that we've never even released. There's still songs that got given out then that we've never put out. There's JPEGs. There's even other things we were playing. It was just kind of NFT-esque in a time that wasn't that. So it's just like a way for people to have more of an experience. And then we actually did another giveaway at the actual show that we had at South by Southwest with those lunch boxes. I don't know. I still see that there's something with that tech that could actually happen in like this current climate. There could be a show where you have those there and then everyone connects to it. There's like a lot more that can happen with this, but it was just a little proof of concept we did over a decade ago. So
I think it's so cool how the way that you relate to technology is the opposite of how a lot of people assume technology affects people's lives. So often I find that the big pushback to AI, to productivity, is really seeing tech as something that's quite isolating. And what I'm hearing, which is my personal experience with technology, is it's a deeply connective way of engaging with other people if you think about it a little bit more deeply. And I'm hearing how a lot of the ways that you are gamifying and playing with tech is finding ways for people to connect through it. And I'm curious if that philosophy was something that you discovered naturally just through your own personal inclinations, or if you had any experiences or inspirations in that.
I never really thought about the inspirations, but now that you asked the question, I was really into the Beastie Boys, and they used technology in a lot of their stuff, but they also just were very interactive with their fans. They really did all these cool experiential things. And in my teens, that was, to me, it just like made me value them more as artists. Like I almost invested in them more through the experiences that they provided. It wasn't just here's our music and they kept it moving. They were doing really cool conceptual videos. And me as a personal on my side of things with this, like I just have always looked at technology as how can I hack it? And I don't mean it in like a malicious way, but there's just like so much there that you can do with this. And I think a lot of people see it very black and white, but it's like, no, there's more you can do with this. The thing I said about putting the crypto wallet in the audio, that was like some old technology that was made a long time ago. And I just kind of brought it into the modern era by like, this is just sitting here. Why isn't no one doing this? And I feel like there's a lot of things with technology that are that way, like where there's just these little hidden things that we can actually use this in a positive way. I think the technology for that was like a military thing initially, and I'm not using it in a military way. I'm actually bringing people together to have fun with it. So
it's awesome. It's like an Easter egg hidden for the seekers who will look a little deeper
Yes,
under the first layer. And just moving a little bit more into AI space. And I want to talk a little bit more about some of your projects like Rubin, the voice cloning app Replay. What pulled you into those, and how do you see AI not only changing music, but also the way that you are engaging in the music making process?
Okay, so how Rubin started, that was kind of the initial company that got me into a lot of this AI stuff. For the people that don't know that are listening, there's a website called GitHub, and there's another one called Hugging Face. And for me, those websites were almost like how I used to dig on SoundCloud for music. I used to go on SoundCloud, try to find the next up and coming artist, like try to find these things I could put in my DJ set. And then when I found out about GitHub years ago and Hugging Face, it was kind of like the AI version of that. And I started exploring those websites and I was like, oh, wow, there's this cool technology to do voice cloning or this or that. And that's kind of where the Rubin stuff started. I found this voice cloning technology that was like a small GitHub that had a community on a My Little Pony 4chan that created this GitHub so they could clone their voice to recreate My Little Pony. And
wow, what a niche community.
it was very, very niche. And I was deep in the 4chan trying to figure this out.
I was on 4chan for My Little Pony.
Yeah,
Don't think too
exactly.
hard.
It was wild. But they were using this stuff called Diff Singer at the time. It was just like this code, and it was really hard to run, and it was just like very clunky. But I was starting to show a lot of my producer friends, like, you can do voice cloning. And they're like, whoa, what can we clone? And like, let's do a Justin Bieber voice. So instead of cloning My Little Pony, we did Justin Bieber and showed it to Diplo. And he was like, well, I have these demos to pitch to Bieber's team. And so we just took those 5 demos, put his voice on it, and sent it to Bieber's team. And they're like, what? Because this was like 2021 maybe. And we were able to pitch to Bieber's team songs for Bieber in Bieber's voice. And then we thought about it even more. It's like, okay, well, if Bieber's team, let's say they took 2 of those songs, we still have 3 other songs sitting there. So why not just put Ariana Grande's voice clone over it and pitch her team? And like, we started to realize there was like maybe a business here, or there's at least a use case for this technology. There can be ways to actually like take these songs, these demos, and repitch them. Because a lot of times in music industry, we make these demos and they get pitched out and they just sit on the shelves. The other thing I think it helped for was it made it so these A&Rs who have to choose these songs, normally, let's say for a Justin Bieber song, it might have a female vocalist on top of it when they pitch it to his team. And sometimes the A&R people might not imagine it in Bieber's voice, so they'll pass on these songs. But when you were able to give it to them how it could actually sound, I think they can wrap their head around it a little bit more. And I think that's with a lot of AI tools too. It can help you like sketch that thing you have in your mind just a little more tangible, and it becomes a little more real.
That's amazing. And so you kind of realized that there was a business here. There's something of a company angle. And then what made you want to pursue sort of some of these other ideas? There was another one that you had. What was it? It was the replay. That's what it was. Replay.
Yeah, I can give you the whole thing.
I want to know.
So like I said, doing this initially, it was like a lot of code. It was very clunky. Like you had to run it on like Google Collab spaces or had to have a crazy PC to run it. But there was a lot of code out there that was like, well, we can package this up. I want to make it so any of my producer friends can use this. Because I was sending it to some of them. Like, I don't understand this. It was like so hard for people to wrap their head around. So I teamed up with these 2 guys and we built this app called Replay where you can do voice cloning on your computer. You don't need to use the cloud. You don't need a Google Collab. You don't need anything. It's just, if you have a computer, you can clone voices with it. And then it started to actually get a big community around it. People started making more models. We only had a few at the start, but now people are cloning Drake and they're cloning more My Little Pony. There was all sorts of stuff that happened from this. And then we realized after we had Replay, we should have a community for this. And that was what we started called weights.gg. That was a place for us to just host the models for Replay. And that community just kept growing like super fast. We didn't expect it. I think part of it was a lot of these communities, especially for AI and Midjourney and things like that, were all done in Discord. But what had happened, like someone did a fake Drake thing with this like bed sheet, the ghostwriter guy. I don't know if you ever saw that. But when that came out, it kind of got the record labels like looking at this stuff. And they shut down the biggest Discord for voice cloning. It was called AI Hub, but we actually had teamed up with them like a couple weeks prior, and we were able to like save all of those models that all of the community had made, put them on Weights. And that's what made Weights just spike. It just blew up. And we had a huge community there, but like voice cloning was one aspect of it, but there was a community of just AI enthusiasts there. So we started to implement more things into Weights. We started adding like chat features so you could interact with these chat characters. We started doing images on there. And then now we have video and we have song generation now. And a little bit of like the thing that we really want Weights to be is we started to realize like our demographic was kind of AI tech forward people, but we also had through the My Little Ponies and stuff like that, we had a lot of like younger people and people that weren't like fully tech enthusiasts. They might have been another community enthusiast, but they weren't that tech savvy, but they could come to Weights and we have it so you can just clone a voice instantly, or you can generate an image of a thing. And we have it all set up now. So if you generate a My Little Pony image, you can actually click on a video button and then now you can animate that. You can almost create everything within Weights a whole lot easier than a lot of the other AI tools that are like, they're a little more complex. And so our North Star eventually is just to make it so you could do everything with just like simple clicks, just like how you were to use Instagram or TikTok. They're pretty easy to edit on those apps. And we're trying to do that with what Weights is, like make it so you can create anything with AI with ease.
That's beautiful. It kind of feels like you're really trying to, create an on-ramp for people that are just everyday folks who might want to use it. And you have called AI the next wave in music tech and even compared it to the post-Napster revolution. And I'm curious, as you're working on Rubin, Replay, Weights, how do you see AI shifting the balance between independent artists and some of these big label productions? Do you feel like we're moving towards a more democratized music industry, or do you feel like we're moving into a space where just new gatekeepers are going to emerge?
I don't know. Gatekeepers are always there. Industry is always there. And wherever there's industry, there's going to be people trying to get money. And also, I'm sure, since this industry AI moves so fast. There's like a new AI model today and then it's beaten tomorrow. All right. It's like, what? And I think there's a blessing to that in a way. Like, let's just use the record industry for a moment. If they like try to whack-a-mole a company like Suno, which I'm working with, Suno's done. They shut it down. There's going to be like 100 other Sunos out there. And how are they going to whack-a-mole those in enough time? So I just think this is moving so fast that it actually might create a change in industry. Hopefully it isn't malicious and hopefully there's ways to compensate people. And we're working on things and weights on how to do that, which I can go into. But I just think that we're at this time where the technology is moving so fast that it actually might disrupt a lot of the industry that's out there. And I think a lot of industries need to be disrupted. Like before AI, music industry really wasn't paying us artists that well. It just was hard to make money unless we were out there performing live shows. So I'm hoping that something like this or any of the technologies will disrupt these old industries, these old rusty machines, and find new ways for people to enter them and also maybe make money.
And as someone who's also not just creating companies, but advising other companies, I'd love to know, you're working with Suno. What has that prospect been like? And what's the process of relating to a tech company that's sort of building one of these tools? Does it feel like you're being engaged as an artist? Does it feel like you're really coming in as like a creative advisor? What does that look like for you?
How I found Suno was kind of how, like I said, I found that early My Little Pony voice cloning stuff. So Suno initially was just a voice cloning company. The thing that I liked is they were really good at doing multi-language translation. And one of the things that we did early at Rubin was we translated one of the Major Lazer songs called Lean On into like 3 different languages. And the idea was to make it so if this song can be a hit in the United States, could it go to India and be a hit over there in their native language or vice versa? Could there be a Spanish song that now can be sung in English and more people can relate to it? So we were trying to do that. And that's how I found Suno initially. They were doing really cool like multi-language translation. And I got on a call with them and told them everything. And they're like, wait, you do music? And yeah, I do music, whatever. And they're like, can we maybe do a call soon? I want to show you something. So they ended up showing me these like early song generations that they did. And they kind of sounded like ringtones or whatever. It wasn't the best, but I was like, yeah, I can maybe help you guys. And just started working with them just for free and giving them some advice on how to make things sound better. And then they gave me their like second generations of what it sounded like. And it was longer songs, a little better quality. Like it could actually rap and it could sing. And it was like, ooh, there's some soul coming out of the machine. And we just kind of had this friend relationship over like a year. And then finally they got like a seed round of money and they're like, hey, we're starting to bring on advisors and would you want to be part of the advisor team? And I gladly accepted. And to your questions of like what my role was there, I think early on I was giving them like tech feedback, like how can this be improved? How can the sound be improved? How can certain elements be improved? But I also have the hat of being this artist, Flosstradamus, and we did a campaign where like, what if we did a campaign where like anyone can remix a song? Because right now I do this when I have releases. I put out a song and then we kind of like put the elements of the song out there for the world to remix it. But there's only a small niche of producers that can do an actual remix. So the idea that we did is like, let's just try to make it so anyone can remix the song. They can take the elements of my song just like a producer would, but then add their prompts and their style and what they want to do. And so we did maybe one of the first AI remix campaigns. I don't know. But the thing that was good and bad with that, because we just had to figure it out, we had, I think it was over 600,000 submissions.
Whoa.
And that was just like submitted songs. But then with Suno and those tools, you could do however many. So if people submitted 600,000, who knows how many were generated? I kind of wanted to do like a Guinness Book of World Records to see if I've had the most remixed song.
Most variations of a song
yeah,
ever.
Exactly. Yeah.
Wow.
Which is kind of it's cool in its own right. But that was the other like kind of role of me at Suno, was to be more of like a representative of the old paradigm of music and then also bring in like some of my tech knowledge. So I've kind of read both lines. So.
And for you as someone who is advising a company like this and also running your own companies, where do you feel you're most excited for the future to unfold? What arenas do you feel like, oh, there's a lot of possibility here, a lot of expansion, a lot of hope?
And this is a personal thing, but I think it's for anyone. Like these technologies make it so we have all of these ideas as creative people and we can make those come to fruition. I have a song coming out on Friday and I'm wrapping up today a music video and I've been using all Gen AI tools for it. And for me to make a music video, however many years ago, I would have hired other people to like kind of make my concept come to life. But how I went through this was like, I had a few different musical video ideas that I really liked. And then I also had a concept of what I wanted for this music video. So I initially went to GPT, kind of workshopped with GPT what I wanted. Then what I did is I took a synopsis script of what this music video looks like from beginning to end. So I felt, okay, cool, there's a flow, there's a story. Then I went to a custom GPT for Flux Flux, which is the image generator we use on weights. And I actually told it to break it down to each individual shot. So then I actually generated the images. The song was with this artist, Lil Jon. I made like a Laura of his face. And I was able to generate each individual, like establishing shots of every one of those scenes. And now I have like a visual representation in images of what this music video is going to look like. So I have GPT breaking it down shot list wise, the images breaking it down image wise. And now I'm taking those images and inserting those into the video generator. And now those images that were static are now 10 to 5 second little clips. And I'm now able to see my video start to morph into reality. So to your question, where do I see the future? I think that all of this is just going to get automated easier and easier and easier. And we're going to have it so someone who has a creative vision, they'll be able to have the least amount of friction of getting their idea to life. Right now, there's a lot of friction still. I mean, there's so much less friction than before, but there's little bits of steps if you know how to do all these little things and finesse to like make it that way. So as you know, the Moore's law of AI is so crazy that I think that it's just going to get to the point where we can actually like give it information and what we want, and then we'll have like video or song, or we'll have some form of media representation of our idea a lot quicker.
I want to know a little bit more about how that process feels to you. You know, you're a musician, you're now a filmmaker, a sort of entrepreneur of media. What for you has been the personal experience of creating with these tools? Because I think we talk a lot about output, productivity, like how much we're able to do, cost. And so I just want to know a little bit about internally, what is it like for you to make with AI? Why do you do it? Why is it fun?
One thing I like to do as a creator in general is bring my idea to life, and to be able to like, maybe I compose a song or whatever, and then I hear it back and it's like, it's almost like a relief. It's like, I finally got to the destination of what I wanted. This idea that was in my mind is real now. And I think with AI, to your question, slightly corny, slightly woo-woo, if you will, but they say like words are manifestation. If you speak something into existence, it's manifesting it into reality. And once I started using AI tools where you're prompting with words and it's becoming reality, that's been the wildest thing. I've been able to just literally manifest these ideas that are in my mind, and they come to life via words. So the manifestation aspect of happening with AI is pretty wild. And it's also like blurring my realities in a weird way. I'm like starting to see even other things I've manifested in this reality, this simulation that we're living in, whatever, like starting to happen too. And it's kind of weird. There's like this thing that's happening in the tech space of manifestation and then in the IRL.
That's awesome. And I want to know a little bit about things that have surprised you. You know, a big part of working with these tools I found is that you go in with an idea, you think that's what you're going to come out with. And sometimes you get what you're looking for, but there's also a lot of surprise. There's also a lot of experimentation and, oh my God, what did you think that I wanted in this moment? And I'm curious what the happy accidents have been in the things you've been making, visual or audio.
I think the happy accidents are the best. Like when I collaborate with a human, there's a lot of happy accidents that happen. They might take a melody in a direction I never would have thought of, or they might edit the song up in a way I never would have thought of. And so for me, I love that happy accident that happens. Like there's something that's like, I would have never thought about that. I think as creators, we kind of have our methodology or whatever. We like methodical with the way we make things. And with that, it'll give me something that's like, this is kind of what I thought, but actually a little bit better. You've added a little bit of sauce on top that I might have not thought about. And then the cool thing is it's a collaborative process. I can take that as inspiration and build on that, whether it's via prompt or put it into something I would edit said generation with and edit it some more. I can now build off that. Now I'm collaborating with it, reverse.
It's also funny to me how in that process of collaboration, I still have moments of not knowing if I'm okay with what's happening, where I have moments of existential confrontation with like, oh my God, this thing is able to do what I used to be able to do so much faster, so much easier, in such a way that, yeah, it's making my life a lot easier, but like, how is this reflecting on my sense of self? And all of us deal with it, process those emotions in different ways. And I think there's also a fair bit of bypassing in terms of like, just don't look at it. It's fine. Just walk to the side. And I think that also triggers people that are really looking at it and really feeling like we need to confront some of the challenges around how this is going to affect the economics of how we do our work and like how we collaborate with one another. Does it disconnect us? Does it reconnect us? I'm always curious what people's coping mechanisms are. And so just from a very philosophical level, I have these moments that feel so practical of like, oh my God, this sense of intelligence has demonstrated to me that it can do something I thought only I could do. And that's a little bit challenging for me in this moment. And I'm curious what your coping mechanisms are if you do have those feelings. And if you don't have those feelings, like how do you keep them at bay?
Being involved in all of this AI stuff in general, like I get excited and scared every single day. Like I get all sorts of like positives and negatives in this space every single day. And for me, I try to lean into the positives of how I can use this. And maybe it's being a DJ, which is kind of wild. There's a bunch of other people that kind of emulate my sound and I emulate their sound. And that's kind of what we do in this community. We almost like borrow from each other all the time. So when someone before AI was maybe doing like the drums like I would do them, or that subs or the 808s or this whatever, like I almost took it as a form of endearment. It's like, oh cool, you're like taking what I'm doing and expanding on it. And so I almost look at this stuff that way too. It's almost a give a penny, take a penny thing. Like maybe I've given something to this AI algorithm. Maybe it's trained on my data. I don't know. But like there's like a piece of it that I've given to it, and then I will take a piece from it too. And the DJ community is a lot like that. So it feels okay for me in that regard. I do want to say one thing I've done with AI that's like just a way of using this stuff in a unique way. But have you used the Notebook LM stuff at all? The Google? For the people that don't know, you can put any type of text or YouTube or some sort of data into it, and it will make a podcast for you that you can interact with. And for me, I actually put in some of my tough text messages I've had with people. I'm a digital hoarder, so I save everything digitally. Like I just have text messages from decades ago. But there's these moments of my life where I went through things like breakups, maybe had an issue with my mother, whatever. And I took that time period, put it in Notebook LM, and I had Notebook LM start having a podcast. To me, even though it's not knowing me, who I am, the listener, I'm hearing it talk about these two people that are in this conversation, and it kind of breaks down and analyzes the way that they've interacted. And then I can go in and interject a question and be like, well, what do you think Curt could have done in that situation to make himself better? And it's actually like been very therapeutic in a way to like use this new AI tool that could be kind of scary, but actually like find therapy in it and find peace and actually become a better person by using these tools. But a positive way of using the AI tools in a way to actually better myself and how I can interact with other humans moving forward.
That's such a beautiful use case. I think to use it as a tool for self-reflection. Were there things that surprised you in your findings? Like was Notebook LM like, man, he could have not been an asshole?
No, seriously, it was. And the thing is, it didn't surprise me because I've done a lot of self-work and I know me now at a point. So one thing, it definitely hurt hearing those words like, oh, wow, this was a part of who I was. But the type of person I am now after doing a lot of this work is like, I don't let my old version of myself like really be the narrative of the person sitting here today. So yes, it was a version of myself and that person was in that period of 2016 to whatever, but it's good to almost like revisit that. Like I'm sure you've like even looked at old photos of yourself and like, why did I wear that? Oh my God, or whatever. So it was a kind of that type of feeling, but on an emotional level, like why did I wear that version of myself at that point? And then I could, understand myself from that perspective. And hopefully I'm not wearing that now.
That's a great point. Hopefully I've gotten better fashion sense and emotional IQ. As somebody who also leads community alongside my film career, spent a lot of time figuring out how do we build systems for people like me to also be able to thrive and exist. And I've learned so much about myself through community organizing and being a part of community. And you really mentioned a lot of these AI tools were something that led you into a space of learning about this very niche community. I want to know, just as someone who has an amazing view into these pockets of human beings that are now gathering around an entirely new genre of thinking and doing and making, what have you learned from that community? What have they shown you? Any insights that you've gleaned from being so connected to community building?
I don't know if I'm much of a community builder, maybe in my show side of things. I guess I've built it with my fan base of the music side of things, but I love being a fly on the wall within communities. So have you heard of the Conscious Life Expo that happens here? So it's just like this crystal-centric woo-woo place, but I like going to these weird things like the Conscious Life Expo. I used to run a little moped gang and I used to be in that community, and I just love entering in all these communities as a fly on the wall, because I think just communities in general, they're a reflection of people's personal identity. I have my own identity and I don't let those communities build my identity, but I'd love to come and observe and just see how those communities exist and the type of people that participate in it. And why do you think this way? Why are you there? Like, why are you attracted to this crystal booth or whatever? So that's just always been a thing for me. And I noticed in the AI space as well, I've been noticing like, why are you brought into this? Like, what is bringing you in here? And I think a lot of people I've at least noticed in this side, just to focus in on the AI tech side, there's like either people that have been doing doing film or whatever for a long time, and now they're like gravitating toward the tools. Or there's people that just like worked a job their whole life and they've always wanted to make a film. And like now there's a way that they can have this idea that's been sitting on their shelf for however long, get into this space, and they can make it come to life. And I've met a lot of people this like, I went to this tech things here in LA, but this woman made a children's book that she's always wanted to do. And she was like, I've had these stories forever. I wanted to make this children's book. And she like used Stable Diffusion to do the images, and she got to put her words in there, and she made it come to life. And she might have not been able to make that come to fruition as quickly, because I think in her mind, I'm speaking for her, but she's just like, well, I'm not an illustrator, I can't make this book. Or I'm not a writer, I can't write the book. Or I'm not a musician, I can never make a song. And the one thing I love about at least the AI community and this generative community or whatever, is they're able to like feel like they're doing these things that they just have been telling themselves they weren't able to do for so long.
It's also so interesting because, especially as people who are creative beings, so much of our identities is built around designing the world that we want to see exist. There's a kind of like, if I don't do it, it simply will not exist. So from that place of like making, doing, and being very much like an author of our own future, because nobody else can give us that, I really am curious, what are you wanting to author in your life in this chapter? Because you've had such a colorful career. You've done so much. You've literally authored a genre. You know, many people can't say that they've done that. And from this place of deep connections to the music industry, really deep connections in the AI space and engineering, what does the future look like for you? What are you wanting to design into existence for your own life in the next few years?
I've done so many things. I've like checked off all of my bucket list things of my music career. And the one thing that I've always loved to do, whether it was with my music career or even in this tech stuff, is make it so other people can shine. Like I said earlier about how like maybe someone did their drums or their subs like me. When I see that happen, it makes me happy. Just like I mentioned Beastie Boys, they influenced me in a certain way. I took that data set, if you will, and put it into me. And then I did this thing. And now there's like kids that are coming up now in the music industry that come to me and they're like, oh, I wouldn't have done this if it wasn't for this song or this show or this thing. And so in this tech space that I'm participating in, I want to help at least build the tools to make that same type of thing happen. Like I've had this with the Suno side of things, and I'm not like fully like in there coding the Suno side of things. It can even be with replay and the things I'm a little more in the trenches with, but people have came up to me and they said, oh, I used that on this song, or I used this on that thing and that element. And there's these songs that are out right now that like I see kids going crazy to at festivals that, yeah, I wasn't the one who created that, but I know a thing that I created was used in that song. And I'm seeing that now echo forward. And so hopefully I can either be a role model in this tech space on how you can be not like numbers forward, money forward, all of that stuff, build a tool that can help people, but also show people that like you guys can build these things too, whatever that is, tech, music, whatever, and then that can affect people. So I'm just mainly trying to cause a ripple in this space, and hopefully that ripple will echo out and that will affect people, and then it'll live on longer than me.
That's legacy. And practical question is like, how do you stay up with what's happening? It's moving so quickly. It's so hard to be centered in the barrage and the flood of new information. What do you read? What do you listen to? How do you stay informed?
I mean, I listen to tons of different podcasts. Like I just love podcasts in general. It's cool because I can multitask and do that. Recently, I kind of got off of all of the major social medias, and I'm like such a boomer right now, but in Google Chrome, there's a thing when you just open up a new blank page, it has like a news feed in it. And it also ends. It is an infinite scroll. So you get 20 or 30 things. But for some reason, the Google algorithm knows me so well that it does. It gives me really up-to-date AI things, tech things. I'm really into biohacking. I just bought a new espresso machine, so now it's giving me espresso results. But it's like a very curated news feed. And honestly, the listeners out there, if you need to get off social media, just install Google Chrome and just use the little, like, I don't know what it's called, the For You page that Google does. It's just been my like very peaceful boomer social media lately, but it also is like actually up to date, and it's like really giving me things like real time.
Wow, this is great. I'm going to try that right now. I always ask my guests to finish this sentence however they want. So yeah, if you were to finish that sentence in your own way, dear future, what would you say?
Dear future, I'm excited to see what you create.
That's nice. That's a good button.
That works.
We love that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for being a part of the show. It's such a pleasure to have you. And I think for me, hearing the ways in which you started really in the music scene, experimenting, playing with what was around you, until now building the future of music with AI. It's so inspiring, and it's really wild to see how you've continued to push these boundaries. And I can't wait to see what people will do after hearing you, looking at your projects, and I hope that they get an even more nuanced understanding of what you can do to be an artist and an entrepreneur today.
Thank you for having me.
For those of you who are listening, please go check out Flosstradamus' latest projects, both in music and in tech. Whether you're into trap beats, festival anthems, or curious about how AI is shaking up the creative world, Curt's work is where it's all colliding. Thank you so much to the Echo Bend team for all their production support, including Noah Wagner, Ryan Turner, B. Rad, and so many others behind the scenes. This is Dear Future, signing off.
Dear Future.